Battle Royales just keep coming out, and I know that while many get super hyped up about new BRs, a massive amount of other people are also really sick of them. This generally stems from the feeling that many of them don't have too much to make them stand out, and thus it feels as if you're doing largely the same overall thing repeatedly, and that's standard for a genre of games generally, but usually a market isn't so heavily saturated by games of that nature being released so consistently, especially when so many are free to play, like in the Battle Royale market. And indeed, another free-to-play title is our focus today. Spellbreak is a new Battle Royale available for free on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and on PC via Windows. So does anything make Spellbreak stand out? Is it worth a look? Or is it just another Battle Royale that will slowly fade away? Well, I'm here to help you to make up your mind. This is Spellbreak. Feelings out so you aren't waiting around, and then we'll break it all down from there. Spellbreak is tough to really criticize too much because it's free to play and it's just recently come out without too much fanfare behind it, and it has some genuinely original attempts to stand out and be different. I truly feel it has some real potential, and I commend the intricacies at play and the potentially high and complex skill curve and ceiling, but it's being let down pretty big time right now by some large and somewhat confusing flaws. So let's get into it. Spellbreak's full release across the platforms that I mentioned was on the 3rd of September, and it does have cross-play and cross-platform progression, something lacking from some other BRs at release, and it is a true asset for Spellbreak. The opportunity to have friends play together on different platforms, build up that player base, utilize higher player numbers via cross-platform play, and allowing people to play on different platforms and progress on the game regardless of which one it is at the time. Then you can also turn off cross-play if you would like. So some great options on board. Now, the main premise of playing Spellbreak is that it's a battle royale with spells, so it's not another shooter, and it's third person rather than first person, so think more Fortnite than Warzone for your initial kind of feelings. Although no, it's not really like Fortnite at all, and something I want to heavily praise is how deep and varied the spell aspect of the game actually is. On top of the ability to temporarily levitate or float, which is standard for all players, you can basically wield two elements, such as fire, wind, stone, etc. One you choose before you start the game and you have as you drop in, and the other you pick up via loot. The elements you pick up in the game can be switched, the one you start with can't. That one's standard for the rest of the game. Each element has two abilities. I think the game splits them into two spells and two sorceries or something, but whatever. Basically you end up with 4 spell abilities, plus a rune ability you can pick up via loot, such as flight or invisibility. Add on top of that upgrading these elements via loot, as well as upgrading the rune, plus upgrading your basic attributes via scrolls, and there's equipment such as belts, which in turn allow you to use armor, and there's health potions, and all my days, there's literally so much going on. Now, for some of you, this may sound way too convoluted, and I can totally understand that. I know some people really enjoyed Hyperscape, for example, due to how simplistic the loot was, but if you want a really deep and somewhat complex and varied looting experience, then Spellbreak has you covered. But it's not exactly all that I'm praising, as that's more of an opinion divider depending on what you prefer. No, what I'm praising is the way that the abilities and the amount of them create a really different feel for this BR.
Spellbreak, battle royale game with a decent spin and promising plans for the future, although is it good enough to break through all those general leading massive titles in BR? It's too early to say, but it might not even have to compete with classic BR games at all. The game is so fundamentally different that might attract absolutely different groups of players. Spellbreak feels a bit more like a hybrid of BR and MMO, and funny enough, MMO players which tried this game, they got really quickly good at the game. At the moment, a big problem, which might sound really funny and is obviously fixable problem, is matchmaking, and that's obviously due to beta testing, player limitations and stuff, but this is still a little bit of a problem, but because you can get into the lobby with highly experienced pre-alpha player which will destroy you so quickly that you have no clue what happened, and many of my friends gave up on the game just in the beginning because they did not understand why they die so quickly or why they cannot do as big damage as others do. Skill gap in the games is a great thing, but it have to be introduced and you have to be aware of its existence. It needs to be like a small preview or display of a possibility within the game, so player is not getting shocked and totally confused. So the game is not that difficult when it comes to the basics, because we just have 3 items, which is a belt which gives you armor, a necklace which gives you more levitation time, and boots which allow you to run faster. Then we have gauntlets, which are our weapons, and rune, which will add us mobility or escapability skill. In total, we have like 6 items because, you know, you wear 2 gauntlets, 1 each hand, and 3 skills plus 2 basic attacks. So it's not that hard to gear up and, you know, to just get your all items or make your own build. Spending like 10 minutes on a tutorial island would quickly get you the basics nailed down. The problem is that no one is telling you about the biggest twist of it all, which is comboing your gauntlet elements or denying enemies' attacks with opposing elements. It is so much fun. I'm surprised that no one introduced that to me at the very beginning and there was no information about it. After I discovered those combos, I got really hooked and I started experimenting with it, and it was so much fun. Worth mentioning that this game got classes and which you can level during the match. For the just period of the match, you got like unlock special passive abilities for your main gauntlet, plus you can choose like 3 talents at the plus selection window as well, and you can upgrade them with a special scrolls during the match.
But it's not exactly all that's that I'm praising, as that's more of an opinion divider depending on what you prefer. No, what I'm praising is the way that the abilities and the amount of them create a really different feel for this BR. It's not as simple as carrying a couple of guns and some equipment or whatever. This is managing your mana, which is basically your ability energy. Every time you levitate or use a spell, you use up some of that mana that needs to recharge, so you can't just constantly spam your abilities. Plus the sorceries or the larger abilities are on a cooldown as well, so there's genuine skill and timing involved. You have to choose when to do things such as float and use your spells, which spell to use when and how they combo, because different spells do different things in conjunction. You can put out fire, you can explode toxic gas and all sorts of stuff like that.